primary legislative goals are to do things like repeal the health spending bill, to end bailouts, cut spendings, then we have to put someone in the White House who will not veto these moves. Let's bring in our company, Republican strategist Alex Conant, BET correspondent Jeff Johnson, and the Daily Beast's Shoshana Walsh. All right, I've got to start with you, Alex. If you take a message away from what happened on Tuesday, is the message that the American people were sending to the Republicans get rid of Barack Obama?
Well, clearly the midterm elections was a referendum on President Obama. He's the leader of the Democratic Party, and the Democratic Party took a shellacking on Tuesday night, losing the majority in the House and deep losses in the Senate, and then on down the ticket in state legislatures and governor's mansions across the state.
But when you look at the exit polls, what they say is Americans are split on whether or not health care should be repealed. They're split on whether or not there should be a continuing tax cut for people making $250,000 a year. And we just got from the White House that the president is open to discussing whether or not all tax cuts should be extended. So he's already saying, I'm willing to compromise. Is it smart for the Republicans to say there is no compromise?
I think that the Republicans should not be compromising when it comes to core principles like cutting taxes and cutting spending. That's what they told the voters they were going to do, and the voters expect them to go to Washington, D.C. and do exactly that. And if President Obama can agree with them that we've got too much spending, that Washington needs to shrink, to turn more over to the private sector and keep a lid on taxes, then absolutely they should work with him. But if he's going to continue to want bigger government and higher taxes, that's going to set up a big fight over the next 2 years.
Jeff, there are more than a few people who think that the Democrats overplayed their hand when they were elected in 2008, that their priority should have been jobs, should have been the economy, not things like health care. Are the Republicans about to overplay their hand?
Well, I think the question is, what do they want the next 2 years to look like? If they're not playing their hand, if they want to have continued argument, bickering, and a lack of progress. I mean, I think we got to remember that this is a president that when he first came in was willing to reach across the aisle, attempted to have conversation across the aisle, and realized that it wasn't working. And then he began to push a little bit harder with the Democrats in Congress to be able to push health care through and begin to deal with the rest of the Democratic agenda. I think he's having to take a step back and say, now we have to go back. I mean, I think the example is Clinton and Republican Congress was able to pass legislation that was helpful for the American people. Washington's going to have to understand that that's what needs to happen now if in 2012 anyone wants to have a good approval rating.
You know, I was saying, not facetiously really in the break, at least you know where Mitch McConnell stands. At least you know where the Republicans and the Tea Partiers stand. There was a report in the Wall Street Journal about a meeting before this past election trying to develop a communication strategy. Folks from the White House, top Democratic strategists, Democratic congressional leaders, and some of them were so frustrated with that meeting, they broke off and they've started their own group to talk about communication strategy. If the Republicans have a cohesive message, and Mitch McConnell is not making any bones about where he's going with this, do the Democrats have one too?
Well, it's interesting, and what Alex just brought up and you did about having a cohesive message, it's not just Mitch McConnell. If you talk to most of the people that were elected on Tuesday, they are going to say they don't want to compromise, that they, as Alex said, that they went to the voters and they are not going to compromise. So how
do you think there's danger in that for them?
I think there's danger for the entire country because
clearly it shores up their base.
It does, but how is anything going to get done? But I think that they have made a promise.
How does anything get done?
They made a promise to these voters, and if you asked a lot of the people, a lot of the Tea Party candidates, a lot of the Republicans on Tuesday that got elected, when they were out there campaigning, they said, we are not going to compromise. I make this promise to you, and they're not. So how is anything going to get done?
Really quick.
Well, again, the White House and the Democrats think that they have a communications problem. They don't. They have a policy problem. I think it was Robert Gibbs who actually said in his first 2 years in the White House, he's never been to a policy problem meeting. It's all communications problems meetings. They need to step back, take a look at their policies, look at what they're doing, and look for areas where they can work with the Republicans, because the Republicans are serious about keeping a lid on taxes and cutting spending.
Well, as we just said, though, the White House has indicated that they are willing to talk about extending tax cuts. So the president surely sending a message with that he wants to work with the Republicans. Let's see what the president gets back. Alex Conant, Jeff Johnson, Shoshana Walsh, thanks to all of you.
Thank you.
And we want to show you a few of the fresh political faces making their way to the House of Representatives, from former NFL lineman John Runyon to another quail, Ben. He's going to be the next representative for Arizona's 3rd District. And, of course, then there is Sean Duffy, the reality star turned lumberjack turned U.S. congressman. So we're talking a lot about the new faces that are going to be heading to Washington. Also, new developments on the cargo plane terror attempt last week. One of the bombs on board was just 17 minutes away from exploding. Colonel Jack Jacobs says it would have been enough to split the plane in two. We'll talk about that.